dive right into our course for today. Now, we're going to cover more or less these points, but what I'd like to do is I like this course to be very interactive. As adults, we actually learn by asking a lot of questions and also by deciding to apply some of the things that we're learning right away. So, for example, at the end of the session, I may ask you for your, 1, 2, 3 takeaways and what you think is applicable in your business immediately. There's quite a lot of perks that my colleagues are ready to share with you, both in terms of extra resources, also in terms of next events. So please make sure you stay throughout this whole course all the way to the end. Now, why am I talking about how to expand and how to market your business in the US? Because I have more than 20 years career in management for B2B companies. And I'm a CEO. I have many businesses in digital marketing, in tech. I'm a board member in different NGOs, some of which are actually worldwide, expanded globally. But most important, I expanded some businesses of my own and some of my partners and customers to the US. I actually own no less than 3 businesses in the US right now, and I exited already 2. With that in mind, let's jump into US market entry and what does it actually mean? Because it seems, since we're going to talk about marketing to the US market, let's figure out what does this actually mean for you. For example, if we want to go, by the book, it is actually not necessary to be there to have an active market presence. It's actually more important to develop business relationship to the US in order to enter the market, rather than to go the traditional path of opening an office, hiring personnel, and so on. So basically, just to be present on the US market, just to have this market entry, you don't necessarily need to set up a business there. You just need to have business relationships. So you don't have to be big, you don't have to be a global company, a corporation, you don't have to be present on all of these markets. You just need to develop international businesses or business relations, let's say, to the US market. Now, why would you market to the US, right? This is a question that I got many times in Poland, actually. I remember a couple of years back, I was presenting for a SODA event, the Software Association in Poland, and people in the audience, about 700 entrepreneurs in IT, were asking, why would I expand my business to the US market? Of course, some of them already expanded it, so it was not new to them. But for example, for me, why I decided to expand our businesses initially was to diversify my client portfolio, also to reduce the risks that were associated with being present just on Southeast Europe. So back then we only had the business in Romania, but some of our customers were already in the US and they asked for our help there. So this is how we decided to basically follow our customers and be present on the market. What I soon realized were some really advanced, let's say, benefits of being present on the US market. And that is, the market was much more mature than in Southeast Europe, which means that even hiring people in our staff became really easy because they knew that they are going to learn quite a lot by working on the US market with US customers. So this was one of the good things. So not only were we present there, but we were bringing knowledge back into our team, and our team was growing with the customers that we were bringing in. Also, economy back then, but even now, is much more unstable than the US market economy, which meant that it sort of gave us this stability. I actually have a rule right now for any startup that they should be present on 3 markets, okay? Because this really mitigates the risk of economic downturns and so on. And also, of course, we loved connecting, right, to new cultures, and we loved, especially that there's this more mature sort of approach to services and solutions. So if you have a really innovative service or solution, the US market may adopt it much faster than a more, let's say, conservative Europe and a very different Eastern Europe. And we're going to talk about cultural differences soon. But I would love to learn, so if you can put in the chat pane some of the reasons of why would you like to expand to, or why do you think you'd like to expand to the US market? Figuring out the why is very, very important. For example, you may feel you want to raise funds in the US. You may feel that you want to find a really big partner to represent you in the US. You may figure out that there's this whole untapped market. Let's say you exhausted your local market and there's a market in there. There's definitely more money in there. So there's different reasons of why we would go to the US market. But coming back, of course, we all know that there's this huge opportunity, because I know many of you are from the tech space. I decided to look to narrow down particularly in the tech space and understand, the huge opportunity. 1/3 of the whole market in the US is of tech market worldwide is in the US, okay? Almost 1/3, 31%. And more than half of these are software as services, okay? So this means that basically there's no comparison to other markets. And if you are in tech, you have to be in the US if you want to have, let's say, a really solid growth. Even, for example, getting funding for tech companies in the US is easier. For the same company, we tested many times, valuation is 2x, 3x, and even sometimes 10 times bigger than the same valuations we would get in Europe or the funds we would be able to raise. So definitely there's a huge opportunity on the tech space and on the tech market. And I think that, of course, all of us understand how big this plays out. So we have Mihaela that's courageously taking the lead in opening up the conversation. And she says that she created a PR software and US is the best market to expand for it. So Mihaela, if you want to go off mute, would you mind sharing, what's your software? I'd be very interested to know about this. And also maybe detail a bit more of what's your why for going there, if you feel comfortable doing it.
Yeah, sure. Hello.
Hi.
Hey. Nice to meet you, Lory.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm from Romania, as you probably already know that. I created the PR software, which is automated basically a lot in what I did as a traditional PR agency.
Mm-hmm.
And already working with on different markets, even with US, having clients from there. I developed this tool, already running it for some time now, almost 2 years on the Romanian market. Already presented the investment option to some investors in New York, and they agreed to create a round there of investment, a pre-seed round. Trying now to finish the MVP 2 of the project for it to be very scalable, technically speaking, and prepare the expansion in US.
Wow.
Did I answer your question?
Yes,
or?
Congratulations. Sounds amazing. Does the
Okay.
tool have already a name, or you haven't decided on that yet?
Actually, I have 2 tools. The
Okay.
one who is already run on the Romanian market is called To Value.
Okay.
To bring value to one another. This is the main idea.
Okay.
And the second one is Tudo
Tudo,
PR. Tudo.
Tudo PR. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
So yeah, so we'll see
Congratulations.
which brand will go further. So it's a
Um,
choice.
Yeah, we have quite a few entrepreneurs in the PR software space in Romania. I don't know if you're familiar with Prowly, for example, but there's also some other tools that have originated from Romania and are right now really famous. So I think that you're on the right track. Congratulations. So your why basically would be to also get clients, but also to get funding in the US, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Um, Thank you so much for sharing this. So going forward, as we mentioned, there are some classical options to enter the market, and we're going to tap into how is this different from a marketing perspective, okay? So we all know the classical called the stage model, when we go to that market, we open an office, we're present there, we hire personnel and so on and so forth. Now, this sometimes may require even a couple of years for setting up the business. And setting up a business in US is actually very easy. You can do it online for a couple of $100. But the challenge is, opening up an office, figuring out the right position, hiring personnel, getting the first customers, and so on. And this can actually take about 2 years. If you go with the classic stage model, there's advantages to this because you prove, of course, to be a trustworthy, which for the US market is very, very important. And we're going to talk more about this in the cultural aspect. And also you are very committed to those customers. They want to see you. They want to see that you're there. But you have to invest quite a lot. So you have to invest time. You have to go there and sometimes even relocate there. And for example, for raising funds, since Mihaela brought it up, this is critical. So we'll have to go to the US to be present there or to hire a really, important CEO or a really important role in the company in order to be able to raise funds, because of course investors want to make sure that you're actively working on the market, that you're present there, that you have a name on your company leadership and so on. And we're going to see right away how is this different, even in terms of marketing. But what I would like to suggest right now, because as I mentioned, we invited you here specifically to understand what is the agile way of expanding to the US and how can marketing, so how can you market to the US without, let's say, all of this big investment of time. And I'm not saying this is not required at some point. So if you do take the US market seriously, of course, you have to have an office there, you have to have employees there and so on. But you can do it up front, like in the first, let's say 3-6 months, even up to a year. You can test the market. You can see if the market replies to your solution, service, product before you decide to actually go there. For SaaS, this can be an indefinite time unless you want to raise funds, in which case, as I mentioned, you may want to have some of your company leadership directly there. For services, this is also, let's say, since we're dealing with intangibles, going like this, so going into an agile market to US, may be even easier. So how can this play out for you? First of all, you can set up partnerships and collaborate on opportunities. So basically, for example, what we did, since we're a marketing agency for tech companies, we initially partnered with different agencies that didn't have such a strong digital arm, or they weren't necessarily targeting, let's say, tech companies. Or even with the ones that were big, they were targeting tech companies and they required more talent, or they required, let's say, marketing automation, which we do quite well. So we had this really strong digital marketing and marketing technology, marketing automation. So we basically subcontracted from different partners tasks that augmented their portfolio of services. And this played out really well in the first years that we decided to be present there. Even right now, we do partner with quite a lot of agencies in the States that complement our portfolio of services, or we complement theirs, or together we can do more. As I heard today, the whole is bigger than the sum of its parts. So together we can take bigger clients, we can serve a specific market, and so on. Networking is one of the most important things you will do to US, and you will notice that when we talk about marketing to the US and market entry, we don't talk about, branding, which is amazing, and I'm going to mention that as well, but we don't talk about these activities that will have an impact in 3 years from now. We talk about things that can produce business for you because you are entrepreneurs, or you are with an entrepreneurship mindset, and you absolutely need to expand there in a way that produces the results for your business, and not in 2 years from now, but ideally in a sales cycle. Okay. So this is why we talk about really effective cases of how you can enter the market in an agile manner. And networking is core. If you go to the US before, during, after, it's all about networking. For example, you may expand, as we did, following some of your customers or partners that are present or are expanding to that market that you can still serve. So basically continue to serve them on the US market. So dig through your contacts, and I'm sure all of us has a former colleague, a current partner, a current supplier that already expanded to the US, or they're there with a job and so on, and try to raise your network to a level that it produces real impact and business results for you. Do what the local businesses do. So trying to notice and even asking, your clients, where did they go? Did they go to a specific trade show? Are they part of a specific, industry association? Do they, let's say, are they partner of a channel partner network? And there are quite a lot and lucrative ones in the States. Another very important thing for networking is travel often to the US. I know that the pandemic times shifted this for a while, but right now, more than before, it's a lot about in-person meetings. So there's no way you can build trust without being there once in a while and meeting your customers and prospects face to face. Raising funds is in the US, it's a really good way to market your business. So for example, you can actually do fundraising just to market your business. What do I mean by this? I don't know if you've seen, but let's say whatever business goes on Shark Tank, it doesn't matter if they get funding or not, but they get a lot of advertising. It's the same with fundraising. If you become, let's say you have this PR software, right? And you become known through the VC community, through the entrepreneurs community. It's inevitable that some people will start to use your software, right? So just raising funds, it's a way to get customers, and it's a way to market your brand. And between this, so basically there's this totally old school way of expanding the business, and there's this totally new agile way of testing the new market. There is this hybrid marketing model where you can enter the new market, where you can, let's say, build a virtual initial business in the States by outsourcing lead generation and sales to an agency. So for example, we have right now a business that we market and sell and we represent on the US market, and they outsourced all the lead generation to NNC. and we actually are their footprint in the US. We act as their agent on the local market, okay? That is, let's say, not so big of an effort of actually expanding the business there, but it still gives them a salesperson in the US, a lead generation person that knows the market. We do cold calling, we do meeting setup for them, and so on. So there is this way of expanding to the new market in a hybrid model. Okay, they have a footprint through us, but they're not actually yet fully, let's say, developed office in the States. You can also do the same and hire local salespeople. It's true that from our own experience of hiring salespeople in the US, it was a huge difference when we had local management and when someone in the company leadership was there rather than remote. I think it also plays out a bit into the cultural differences, but we noticed a very big difference when someone in our team was there to manage them directly rather than to manage them remotely. So you can operate through a virtual office. You can go to meet customers face to face once in a while, so you don't have to be there all the time. So basically, you can tap into a potential business opportunity without necessarily developing a full presence there. If you have a good response from the market, then you can decide if you want to open a business, an office, and so on. And we can also talk a bit about digital marketing strategies for a specific US audience. And I won't disclose everything, but otherwise, the course will be done here. But what I can tell you for sure is, first of all, any marketing works if you know how to do it. Okay, so of course, and my colleagues are going to have a course in about a month from now on omnichannel. So basically tapping on each channel and how you combine these channels, right? So what I can tell you for sure, any marketing works. However, there's some specific tactics that work more than the others based on geography. And in the States, for example, a combination of LinkedIn, emailing, and cold calling, especially if it's done with the proper resources. So for example, if it's done with the right, let's say, sales agent that is present on the sales market. So when they call, they know, what's the weather like in Boston, or I don't know, what was the last game in the NFL or something like that. Then this combination of not just trying one message via LinkedIn, but following through with an email, with a call, then another message, then another email, and a call, and so on. This combination really worked, and my colleagues can tell you more about it. Actually, Daniel in the call here is heavily involved with customers in the States, so he has a ton of experience that he can share about how you can market to the US, and also some relevant case studies. Okay, now, I think that at this stage, it would be very interesting to understand what is the minimum effort, right? Because we want to minimize effort and maximize results. What is the minimum effort to enter a new market? Now, because I said that this is going to be interactive, and because I already gave you some hints, and maybe you have your own experience with the US market, what did you do to get your first customer in the US? So if you can type in the chat panel, what did you do to get your first customer in the US? That would be really helpful to the colleagues. We like experience here, and we like this to be real, experience based, not just theoretics and what we read on a blog post. But if you can type, what did you do to get your first customer in the States? That would be really interesting. In my case, I actually followed an amazing customer that we have, OSF Digital. So if someone in their team is present here, I'd like to say a warm hello. But actually, when we helped them initially to expand to the US market and to market in there, I immediately set up a trip and followed them in the US. to understand what is the local market, to understand if we can do something for them there, and so on. And this is how I got my first customer in the US. My next customer was actually my first business partner in the US. And he already exited our business as a partner. Right now, he's just a customer. He's one of the longest lasting ones, I'd love to share more about this technology guru. Okay, Daniel contacted an existing customer of ours and asked for a few referrals. Yes, amazing tip on networking. So please do that. As I mentioned, with all of your network of contacts, ask for referrals. Very important. For a SaaS business, for example, which we wanted to expand in the US, some of the first customers came through a really growth hacking technique, and that is listing a very special one-time offer and discount through AppSumo at that time, and more recently through Product Hunt. Just this got us quite a lot of attention and marketing. So in the case of a SaaS business, but I'm sure that there's many other models out there. What does that mean is that, first of all, how much time should you allow to enter the new market, right? Okay, so probably some of you will say, as much as it takes. Well, of course, as much as it takes, but we want to see some clear results. So what I like is to give each market about 2 years to figure out the full potential. It doesn't mean that initially you won't have immediate replies. So for example, if in 3 to 6 months you didn't get the market feedback, then you either didn't find your fit or your vertical or the right proposal for the US market, so you weren't able to articulate correctly, or maybe there's not a market, but I doubt it. In the US, it's a really big competitive market in pretty much any space. So in this case, I would say it's the former. So maybe you don't have yet the right value proposition for the US market. You didn't package correctly, you didn't launch correctly, and so on. Then I would say to also allow some visits to the US market, okay? Allow for at least 4 visits to the US market. Why I say this is that we need time to understand the local climate. We need time to network, to understand, who's a better connection, who can get me business. Also, customers want to see you there once or twice before they trust that you will be there next time, or before they know who you are. And of course, we need to test quite a few value propositions. Something that I noticed, especially with tech customers and partners, is that the way they articulate the value proposition is not very clear for the US market. And we're going to talk immediately on what does it mean to be clear or clear enough for the US market. So I see Robbie in the chat pane is saying that get common personal connection of mine, leveraged, sorry about that. A common personal connection of mine, and my first US client got, oh my God, 600,000. Robbie, do you mind coming off mute and sharing this amazing first win? What's the business? If you don't mind. If it's difficult, then it's fine.
Hi there, can you hear me well?
Hi, Robbie. Yes.
That's great. Lory, thank you very much for this opportunity. I loved everything you actually said so far. Just briefly telling you about the deal that we've done is that, briefly about myself. So I'm the founder of 2 professional services business. I started my first business back in 2015. I'm from Georgia, Republic of Georgia, not the state of Georgia originally. And I started the digital marketing. Nowadays, this digital marketing agency is already part of a global creative network named Ogilvy. This is like, if you have heard of these agencies, like Madison Avenue
we
founded
know
agency
how
back
him
in
he is for sure.
1948. So that was my first business. The business is still working, and you know, usually we are not allowed to work outside of the borders, right? When you are part of such a great and large agency. But what happened is that I had a, you know, just common conversation with a friend of mine who appeared to be a friend of my future US client. And Michael is basically producer. He's the third largest pork producer in USA. And we had a chance to, you know, chat. It was just a, you know, usual Zoom conversation, like not even this one. I mean, this is a, you know, event. So then he kind of shared all of his pain points, what he was looking for. He was launching, you know, tech product, which is a mix of mobile application and the hardware as well, which would monitor the barns. The product is still monitoring the temperature, humidity, and those kinds of important aspects within the barns. And so we were kind of, you know, teamed up. The duration of the project, I guess, was 7 or 8 months. And the deal was enormous for us because from the country where I come from, it's like 3.5 million people only. So you can imagine what the size of the economy.
You had an
It was
impact on the
huge.
GDP, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And but another reason why I'm here, Lory, is that back in 2019, I've started the IT service agency, which is more into staff augmentation, talent extension. We're also developing the development centers as a service for mostly EU, Israeli based clients. And I would really love to expand to US. That's really briefly. I took much time.
Welcome. And I know that your country has a very like proactive policy in terms of IT and outsourcing, which I love. It's been in development for quite a few years now, so I think that it's already maturing this opportunity. Yeah, nice. So thanks for sharing. Really appreciate your experience share. Okay, so since we talked about, you know, going to the US and how to do that, I would like to ask you, who likes to be sold? Do you know of anybody that likes to be sold? So, for example, and let's put our hat of a consumer and let's figure out that we're buying something or we don't even know, but we're being sold. You can tell when you're being sold, okay? So, but this is not why I said here that we should not sell solutions. What do I mean by this? Remember that I mentioned that especially in technology, but not only, we have this talent to explain the technical complexities of a solution or product. And most of the time, clients cannot resonate with this, right? Also, we don't know how to relate to clients into a new business culture. For example, the first time I was in the US, some question was still appearing in our conversations. And that was, so what are you selling? What do you want to present? What is this about? Did you brought the PowerPoint? And I was shocked because my own style of, you know, selling is actually very consultative, meaning that I want to understand what the problem is and so on. But I wasn't doing because of cultural differences. I wasn't doing such a good job initially, so I had to perfect this. And how I did it, and then I asked many questions, and we applied this many times with our senior leaders that decided to expand their business to the US, is to first figure out the problem, sometimes even before I get to that meeting or I get to this conversation. And how do you do this? For example, if anybody of you would like to share their unique selling proposition in the chat pane, we can even do a role play so that we can learn as much as possible about what does that mean. But I can share based on our experience. For example, what happened years ago, and it's many years back, and I have the client's agreement to share this story, and I'm not going to share their name. But for example, at some point, we had an amazing meeting with a couple of developers that had an amazing product that won, I don't know how many awards in the technical space. And this was about some embedded technology. But when they came to the meeting, they were saying, our code is amazing. The embedded technology is awesome. We're the best at this and so on. I couldn't figure out, okay, so how can I apply this? Because in a marketer's mind, there's always, how can I apply it? Who's my customer? How do I position this and so on? And after a lot of questioning about, okay, so what problem do you solve? But what problem do you solve? Their technology was reducing toxic waste, and it wasn't reducing it with a little. They had artificial bacteria, which was a very innovative technology back then, that were reducing toxic waste with more than 80%. Imagine that, right? Only by understanding what the problem is, the sale became very easy. So we just redid the website and we just said, hey, these guys are actually reducing toxic waste with more than 80%. And immediately the customer started to call in. And this is a heavy B2B tech space. So for example, we were even surprised that it took so little. So just the message repositioning to get them new customers. So when you go to the US, please don't sell solutions. Try to understand what the problems are. And you do this by empathizing with your customers and by let's say, digging before meeting them into their company history, into the news, there's a lot of intelligence and tools, AI tools right now, about how you can discover the problems that they have that you can solve. Daniel actually has an amazing PDF about lead generation with AI, and it's going to provide you, so please get in contact. Maybe Daniel, you can leave your contact details, but he's going to provide you with this lead generation guide with AI. And there's specific tools in there about how you can discover this kind of problem. So when you get to a customer, you position in the right way so that that customer understands where you're coming from. And then selling the solution is seamless, right? So I see that we don't have any shares in the chat pane. Maybe you can think about this and we can do it in the Q&A. This is a very valuable exercise. I can tell you for sure that I just did this exercise with someone in agri-tech recently, and before, nobody really understood much about what they're selling. Right now, they're on the track of signing a really nice fundraising deal. And this was over an event like this. So I encourage you, if you do have, let's say, a value proposition that is perhaps a bit more complex or not easily understood, I'd love to do this exercise with you to show you how to position against the problem and not necessarily solution. If you dig deep, if you understand the real problem, then selling becomes really easy. Okay, 1 second. We skipped a bit fast to the next part. Okay, so if there's no one sharing their USP, let's talk marketing. How much marketing do you need on the US market, and what type of marketing? I did share this on social media about a week ago, and I got so many reactions when I said, you don't need that much marketing. Of course, all marketers and all agencies started to comment on, how can you say that, and so on. Well, we prefer to be practical. We're very focused on actual results. So this is why we don't like to burden especially the first stages of entering a new market with a lot of marketing. What does that mean? Of course, you need a little bit of marketing in terms of, let's say, building a landing page, explaining why and what you want to achieve onto the new market. This is very much different. So if you're in SaaS, you may want to even, do a performance campaign and put some money on ads and so on to gain some awareness, etc. But actually, when I said you don't need that much marketing, I was referring to the aspect that you need to network much more than you need marketing. Even to network is a marketing effort. So networking by itself is part of marketing. And for example, let's say it's ideal that you build a really strong, solid foundation on LinkedIn, right? People know who you are, they can check up information on you, they know, where you're coming from. Regularly posting and bringing up your brand matters quite a lot, even on B2B. Ideally, you can even do short event presentations, right? So look at what events your customers or your ideal customers go to and try to pitch them to get in there with a short presentation. However, I think that it matters quite a lot to do this networking effort, to meet people, to ask for referrals and so on. This is why I think that direct marketing for entering the US market for a B2B brand, for a B2B business is more important than any other marketing effort, right? So basically figuring out how you can get to your target profile. These are ABM tactics. So, and we're quite familiar with this, and we have a whole webinar that I did on ABM with AI that's available on our website and on our YouTube channel. I think if you want, I can send you this after our meeting. So I'm not going to insist a lot on what are those tactics, but again, it's more about direct marketing and being, very precise about networking, meeting people that can get you business. Of course, that if you have the resources of the time, ideally, you would like to understand, how you can position, how you can get a big share of the market, get a very strong digital presence, or let's say build a website for US, and then do all of the nice marketing stuffs, communicating a lot to the market, doing PR, scaling, let's say, your marketing efforts, even having a booth into an event that your customers attend and so on. So of course, based on your budget, based on your willingness to test the market with bigger and bigger budgets, you can test data-driven approaches to campaigns and so on. However, for the starting point, we prefer this agile methodology to prove the market. And if the market is proven, then of course we can invest, but now with the trust that the investment is going to pay off. As I mentioned, does marketing and sales matter most? No, it doesn't. And I think you already guessed. What matters most is who do you know? Okay, so who do you know on the new market? And you can do that even remotely. So for example, I did many digital events and courses like this one, where we started building a real nice relationship, let's say, with our agencies. And as you notice, we can collaborate between agencies. The US market is huge, so there's no competition unless you don't have imagination. So basically, we started networking, even through events like this. We started understanding who's good at what. And now we started developing a business in there, okay? This is a really lean way of doing that. And this is because I know somebody that knows somebody and can introduce me. Now that maybe this is imprinted in your, let's say, way of acting as a market entry to US. Let's talk about business culture differences and how do this matter. There's quite a bit of data showing that actually business culture does matter. And there's also a meta-analysis research, which I would be happy to provide you if you want. So there's this analysis of about 600 case studies conducted over 35 years in 32 countries that show that actually age difference is more important in terms of culture than job roles. So I have more in common. What does that mean? It means that I have more in common with a marketer in the US for technology businesses than I have with my grandma. Now that's encouraging, right? So that's really something. And we can definitely go into the nitty-gritty of, for example, there's low context versus high context, or there's direct negative feedback versus indirect negative feedback in terms of business culture. But something to remember is you have more in common. Let's say if you're a tech entrepreneur with a tech entrepreneur in the States, than you have in common with your grandma. I didn't hear a comparison between, and this is based on Aaron Meyer, but there's other tools out there, there's the Hofstede Index and so on that compare cultures. And I would like to pinpoint just a few. This is like really big, and I'm going to show you how big this is. So it's a really big table. But I wanted to show you just a few points that matter in terms of marketing. So, for example, US is low context. In Europe, we're high context. What does that mean? It means that in the US, you talk very direct. They don't expect too many things on top of what you're saying. Okay, so for example, if they ask for something, they only ask that. In Eastern Europe, many times it happens that we have a meeting after the meeting with the customer to understand what the customer meant. So please make sure that when you go to the US, you speak in a very direct tone and you don't, let's say, you're not very evasive. Also, a very important thing here, when you meet someone new, in Eastern Europe, we like to make friends, okay? So we like to know people. And even in England, I had this happy talk, let's call it, which means that I need a few meetings to feel comfortable with someone, to understand, where they're coming from and so on. In the US, it's business before making friends. That is a very important difference, which I had to learn the hard way. Lucky me, I made some amazing friends, and I cannot, expand my business without having some really nice contacts locally. However, this happened after I made business. So most of our long-term customers became friends ultimately, but I don't have a friend that I haven't made business with in the States, by the way. So first, business, and this is related to this very low context, I believe. There's also quite a lot of, let's say, difference between how decision is made. For example, with us is often a hierarchy, but in the States it's very decentralized. So people at any stage of the company, if they have the power of attorney, they will take the decision right away and very quickly. Sometimes surprising for us. We sometimes hope or wish that someone in the top management of the company would come and correct this project manager that took the wrong decision or something, but this never happens. So we can spend quite a bit of time in terms of figuring out how to dig into this more cultural approach, but we cannot do that without interacting. So no matter how much I talk about it, you have to talk to US, business people, and you have to talk to your prospects and customers many times to understand how this plays out in a different way than we do it normally. So that's why I mentioned that it's important to make sure that you take into account cultural differences. However, before you don't meet people and interact with people and so on, you won't know how this plays out. So there's no theory to explain you how to network in the States unless you do it, okay? Learning by doing. Even this is an American concept, let's say. I also thought that we can, let's say, end up this part of the course and dig into the other more interesting stuff and Q&A and so on by setting up a plan of how you can go to US really fast, a 6 months plan, which we tested many times before, of getting your first customers and how this plays out. And maybe I invite my colleagues to share some of their customer stories, but how this plays out. Let's say in the first month, you set up your market entry, right? You decide who to contact, you decide what channels, what messages, what you want to prepare. For example, when I first went to US, I only had the landing page, nothing else. So I didn't even have a company website back then, because before I was focused mostly on the region. So the first time I went to US, I only had the landing page in English, which was enough. Month 2 and 3, you do a lot of A/B testing of campaigns. What does that mean? So let's say you decided that your customer profile in the US may be the chief information officer for a software platform in there, okay? And you decided that you're going to approach them by calling and by writing them on LinkedIn. And also you decided who you're going to work with, or if you're going to do it yourself. And you put in place some AI that helped you to understand that person's profile, right? For example, there's AI that can guess your personal profile and suggest what messages would work out with a specific person. And as I mentioned, Daniel has this, so please reach out to him so that he can provide you with this guide. And now it's time in month 2 and 3 to test this concept, okay? So what you do, or what we can do for you, is we start messaging these people, we start reaching out to them, we start interacting with them. It takes quite a lot of interactions. For each customer, it takes a minimum of 7 touches. I prefer 8 to 14 touches for a prospect before you can have a decent reply rate. And you don't have to be innovative, but for example, if I email you once, then I message you on LinkedIn with the same message, and then I call you with the same message, this is 3 touches already, okay? So this is how we count touches, and this has to be done in a sequence so that people remember. So if I email you today, but if I call you next week, you may not remember. So it's very important that if I, let's say, message you on LinkedIn, and if I call you, ideally, I would call you right after you accepted my LinkedIn contact request or the referral that I got. By the way, if you get referrals, even via LinkedIn, there's a much bigger chance that you will do business. It's actually about a 30% bigger chance that you will do business with that person, as opposed to cold outreach, as we know. However, we also have AI to warm up the leads. So basically, this is what we do. In this month 2 and 3, we do a lot of testing and trying, and we try to approach and message them on different channels to see which one they react to better. So what is the message that they get? What questions do they have? When do we get more positive feedback rather than negative feedback? We find this market fit, okay? Then in month 4 and 5, we, let's say, do direct sales. We narrow down to the most responsive profiles, okay? So there may be, we reached out in the testing phase to 3 profiles, but one went really smooth. The other 2 we can keep, and we can keep testing before we reach a really good response rate. But now we focus on this one so that in the 6 months, we already get a predictable month-to-month number of leads, okay? This is a really good agile plan for entering into the new market. But one thing that I have to mention is, please do not ignore your local market. I saw many companies that are, following the American dream, and everybody wants to be there because it's a huge market. And they ignore their local business, which provided a steady maybe income or customer stream and so on. When we do a new market entry, so when you expand on a new market, and now we can talk separately at businesses that launch directly to the US, but it doesn't matter what your previous market was, don't disregard it. I prefer to focus 20, maximum 30% of the focus to a new market entry. So for example, in the US, if you go, focus, let's say 20 to 30% of your efforts to enter that market, and don't disregard what paid off before, because you know the current game, but you don't know the new game. Before you know the US market game, don't disregard the business that's continuing here. We learned this also the hard way. So for example, we were very fascinated about going to the US, and actually, I think that it somehow coincided with Donald Trump's being named as a president, but we had a downfall on the US market, and it took us a while to reposition on the local market. So we had to learn that let's not disregard the local market, or let's say the traditional market where we grow initially, and always keep in balance. Remember I said about 3 geographies? Yes, it's better to be on 3 markets. So if even 2 fail, at least 1 you will be able to control. Okay, so I asked my colleagues to be very, very clear about, how this really plays out. And they are so generous as to put together of what is even an investment into a new market before you can see some real contracts. And for example, this is a 3 months plan with a fixed budget of 5,000 euro. And what does that encompass? Actual things that you can do within this budget. So within this budget, you can set up your strategy. You can reach out to about 1,500 prospects per month. And Daniel is going to show you how, because he has this guide for prospecting with AI. You can send out about 1,500 invites per month via LinkedIn or via other social networks, because we're familiar also with our social networks, and some are really niche. For example, there's social networks for cybersecurity specialists in the States. So if you have a SaaS that starts getting cybersecurity, then the invites will be sent directly into that community. No need to go through LinkedIn. So there's some specific ways. Sometimes we go, let's say, through startup communities or from VC communities. So it very much depends what the target profile is. Then this is a average conversion rate of what my colleagues have seen so far in real case scenario and projects. So this is all based on experience right here, and so on. So all of this is broken down to, exactly how this plays out with a targeted budget, within a certain time frame, and so on. So we want you to be really, really specific about how you can achieve this. Now, of course, there's a lot of questions to consider on top of this. So I showed you, what are the most important aspects of entering the market, how you can do this in a classical manner, and how you can do this in a very agile manner. And we're always getting questions when decided to expand. For example, what is my total addressable market? So TAM in there is like total addressable market. There is really good ways of sizing the market right now. And for example, even through your selling proposition, you can size the market or you can address a bigger or a smaller market. What we love, or what I love, is to create the market, because then you can dominate the market. So let's say in our previous case, the showcase that I explained about artificial bacteria, right? If I would say, oh, we're a player in the embedded market, it's very generic, right? Embedded is even software on my phone, okay? But if I say, we're dominating the artificial bacteria market, it's a very different game. Also, it's much more clear to my customer or prospect, what do I do? It's the same with medical devices or with laboratory information systems or whatever else up there. So it's very important that when you understand, you know, what is my market in the US, you have a partner that can guide you into figuring out, you know, what is your market based on your customer profile, and even sometimes to suggest what may be the customer profile. For example, quite recently, I had this conversation with SaaS developer, and they are in education technology, and they didn't even consider before that they may be actually in the video market. And just by this, like, there's a really big hype right now about video market and about how you can edit videos or create videos faster and so on. And, you know, they were so creative in the ed tech space, but they didn't realize they have an amazing video tool. Okay. So there's quite a lot of things we can talk about in terms of the total addressable market. Of course, you have to consider your limitations, right, of time and budget and so on. As usual with marketing, if you don't have if you cannot put together the effort of time and money to do this for a while, even on your own, right, I would suggest don't even start it. So don't start something thinking that it's going to end up in 3 or 6 months. But, you know, if you decide to enter the US market, yes, you can do some agile testing in the beginning to make sure that the market works out for you. But please do not stop there. Like, your thinking should be, you know, the vision for long term. Like, I want to be there, like in 3 years, if I have 5 employees there, and if I have like 5 customers, I will set up a business. Okay, so try to figure out if you have limitations, and if you can't support this, maybe it's still time that you grow locally before expanding to the US. And also consider building the business, let's say a solid business there, not just new customers. So when entering any market, it's very important to look at it seriously. Again, we can go back to this whole philosophy. Nobody wants to be sold. But for example, any country has this, let's say, national feeling, okay? And if you are connected with this national feeling, you don't want to, let's say, encourage someone that doesn't pay off locally. You don't even trust someone. We were telling about US that they have a really high trust threshold, and you will see this in the cultural differences I mentioned, that they need to build trust much bigger than we need here in this part of the world, because we're a small nation, and usually we have a very clear mentality. In the US, there's people with different backgrounds. There's, you know, Italian families and Irish families and so on, with specific tradition, but it's a very big mix. And in there, if you are, let's say, you have to prove that you're American for a long term before, you know, you can gain trust, someone's trust. And this is also in business. So do consider at least building a business there long term. I think that these are some of the more standard questions that we are getting. And I know that it's a mix between, you know, entering the market as a business and actually marketing to the US. But I thought that it's a good idea to give it this whole picture, the helicopter view of what is happening when you decide to enter the market and to expand your business to the US. Because I think that, again, if you want to get into the details, and details are very specific for each business, it's better to contact, Juan or Daniel in our team, because they can give you the right points on doing that. So with this, I'd like to open the floor for questions if you have about the session today, or if there's any topics that we didn't cover, or any references that I made. Maybe I said, like, I will explain later and I never did. So feel free to even jump off mute and ask your questions or suggest anything that can make this session better. Or even sharing your takeaways and how you can apply some of what we suggested here today. That is also very valuable. We said in the beginning of the session that adults learn by being curious and asking questions, and also deciding to apply some takeaways to the new market. I'll give people some time to think of the questions that they have, but maybe Juan or Daniel, you'd like to announce the next event that is going to happen next month. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Lory, for all this amazing information and very, very valuable. Our next event, mini course, will be on omnichannel marketing. So we'll tap into even more practical ways of building an omnichannel approach, also into expanding to other markets. So that will be on March 19th, but we'll make sure you get an invitation and a reminder for that as well. And by the way, guys, because I see a lot of faces who've been attending many of our webinars, we'd love to connect with you and let us know if there are any topics you would like us to build a course on or to build a webinar on. So feel free to interact with us and let us know what is interesting for you this year, or what's on your mind, or what type of challenge you have with your business. So once again, thank you so much, Lory, for this amazing information. If I can just quickly add something up, remember the importance of having a clear market plan and strategy before you're starting to do this, and to perhaps work with a consultant who already knows that market, to make sure you're not shooting your budget in the dark. So I've seen one most common mistakes in our projects and with our customers, for instance, is they just try to translate their customer profile from the local market or from the European market into the US. And most of the time, that's not the right way to do it. Most likely, your buyer persona in the US is really different from what you have locally. Like, there are some, famous case studies like UiPath or Bitdefender, who are Romanian companies who made it big in the States, but they didn't make it with the same, customer profile. They went first with partnerships, with channel marketing. So you have to try to, go out of the box and rethink your approach, because it may mean a totally different approach from what you have locally.
This is actually a very good point, and I should have emphasized it, as you mentioned, because even in our case, for example, the customer persona locally is very different than the customer persona in the States. It has to do even with the market size. For example, whatever you see in Europe, as I mentioned, if it's investments or customer size and so on, it has to be a few times bigger in the States to fit the same category, right? So for example, a small business in Romania or medium-sized businesses in Romania, or even enterprise, is very different. So most enterprise businesses in Southeast Europe would not be making it to the higher tier of middle-sized businesses in the States. You're absolutely right. So this needs to be refined. That's why, the first step is the strategy. And this is, if you don't look carefully at the strategy, there's a high chance that you will, you know, grow the fat tail, as they say in project management. So basically, you're going to spend much more learning, let's say, the mistakes along the way, or doing the mistakes along the way, rather than if you planned. And planning doesn't have to be, you know, 6 months of planning, but someone should hold your hand that has this experience of tackling the new market, and showing you, you know, how it's done, how it was done successful, and basically not repeat the same mistakes that perhaps we learned already from 16, 17 years of doing this.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah. And another thing, once you make it in the US, or even in the meantime, while you prepare that, make sure you also prepare your operations and service for working with customers in the US. You know, you're going to work, if your services or products require customer service or support, and you're still doing it, you know, offshore, it's going to be a totally different approach. So, you know, your people will work on another time zone, or you need to invest in, you know, coaching them to work with American customers. So make sure you also prepare for when you make it big in the US.
For sure. Thanks. Daniel, would you like to add anything?
I would add to the fact that, okay, first of all, we start doing business, and then we get friends with the people from the United States. I would put an accent on making friends with them and showing empathy, because many of the times they will just tell you a small concern that they have and just shoot it in the conversation. And then you go on with your regular update meetings and things like that. But be careful of their needs, and when they complain about something, they might not do it so vocal as the Europeans, but they want to get attention on that. And what works always for me is getting to know their pets, getting to know their family, getting to talk about as soon as we end our regular conversations, getting to just have a casual conversation, because these are our long-lasting customers, the ones that they know that know each other, and they know us.
Yes, for sure. Like, we are going to end up, you know, bringing to the US a bit of our culture, that's for sure. And we are all about this. But yes, it does mean, like, we have this embedded into our business culture that we have to make friends. Initially, they just want to do business, which is building a different report, sort of. So initially, you have to prove you are a reliable business partner before, you know, you can take them out to lunch, let's say, or
Exactly.
something. That being said, you can definitely set up, let's say, with an accelerator there, or with a co-working space, a luncheon or a breakfast or a brunch, and invite people. They will show up. And that is a really nice networking tactic, and I encourage you to do that as well.
Yeah, and also from virtual events, you know, wine and cheese, we're doing this for a customer of ours. We've sent to a database of contacts, we sent a package of some good wine, some good cheese, and then we all got together on a Zoom call, and we tasted cheese, and we had a glass of wine, and that was amazing for the conversation that led after that.
Yes, our colleagues in Poland have been an inspiration in terms of this, and we really appreciate it. Okay, I think that pretty much concludes our conversation for today. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation for this session. If you have any questions, I'm here, Juan and Daniel are here, and we'd be happy to set up follow-up conversations to see how this really applies to your business, because it may be very, very different from, you know, case to case, business to business. So do please reach out to us, and we'd be happy to hold your hand, and we'd be happy to see that this was useful and you've applied some of the things that you've learned today. Thanks so much, and let's boldly go to the US.